think we're going to kick things off with the AFC North. I think this is one of our favorite divisions to predict. Arguably one of the best / most competitive division in the NFL. Last year, every single team above 500 somehow, even with a Super Bowl runner-up quarterback not playing for half the season. You got a 2-time MVP quarterback in the division. You got a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And you have 2 national championship winning quarterbacks on the same team. A very, very loaded division, we could say.
Yeah, it's obviously you see the jersey sitting here. Look, maybe this is a illusion of things to come. Maybe it's not. We'll have to wait and see. But no, I do love the North. We talked about the South last week, and obviously, if you guys haven't checked that out, go check it out. We'll pause right here, and then we'll come right back to it. Because look, I think this is the opposite of the South in a lot of ways. Last year, the toughest division was the AFC North. I don't think there was any question about that, how tough that thing was. Every team in that division had an opportunity to do something. Absolutely had an opportunity. And that's with and without starting quarterbacks at points and times in the year, or with and without major players for the teams all year. Talk about Nick Chubb getting hurt. Joe Burrow, will he start? Will he not? I mean, the backup for the Bengals going out here and balling like he's Joe Burrow at LSU. Like, who would have thought that's about to happen? The Steelers, somehow, Mike Tomlin, yet again, another winning season. How? I don't know. I'll never figure it out. And then you have the Ravens, obviously, doing Ravens-like things. But no, this division, we'll see if it's going to repeat again this year.
Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and kick us off. We're going to go from the bottom to the top. And in the cellar for the AFC North, I do have the Steelers. I have them finishing at 8-1. For all the reasons of I simply couldn't give them a losing record. Mike Tomlin has yet to do it, so I found a way to keep them from having a losing record. It's uncanny. I do think defensively they still got T.J. Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Joey Porter Jr. They still got Patrick Queen coming in from the Ravens. I think defensively they're going to be really stout when they're healthy, if they can stay healthy. They're still going to give a lot of teams issues. Still going to be a top 10, 12-ish defense when they're healthy. Cameron Hayward is still there. Offensively, that is kind of the big question mark. This is also in the midst of, will Brandon Ayuk get traded there? Will he stay with San Fran? Where will he go? What will happen? For me, that trade doesn't change this too much because of the way Arthur Smith runs the offense. Even in Tennessee, when you had A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, Corey Davis got almost like 85% of his yards in 3 games, just depending on what coverage the team was playing that year. It is a one-receiver-centric passing game, and A.J. Brown was that guy in Tennessee, and it's going to be George Pickens here or Brandon Ayuk. Either way, I don't think adding it's going to make too much difference, maybe a game. Quarterback-wise, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Russell Wilson seems to be the guy, but right now he's broken. Justin Fields is out there. Will he start to shine? What will we see there? Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, weirdly competitive backfield. Do like what they've been doing on the offensive line the last couple of years, though. Roderick Jones, some of the draft picks they've made, they finally started to address it after ignoring it for half a decade. Pat Freiermuth still a solid tight end. Calvin Austin can fly. We know how they find these random late draft round receivers that end up flourishing. So maybe there's one we're not even thinking about the top of our head. So they're still a solid team. And I think if you put them in another division, I'd be willing to give them that above 500 record. But right now I'm sticking them at not losing record, 8-1. Very competitive. A lot to like, but still a lot that I'm concerned with, especially compared to their rivals in the North.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm with you here. I think the Steelers bottom of this division makes sense. I'm not going to go into my pick in complete detail here, but let's just say I don't have faith. You are much more positive about the Steelers' future than I am. And my hesitancy comes from that quarterback position because you can't win if you don't know who your quarterback is. So we'll go there in a second. But yeah, DJ, I'll let you keep going with your list.
All right, moving on to number 3. Well, they had to tie with somebody, so the team I'm putting them tied with is the Baltimore Ravens at 9-7-1. So they did finish with a better record. They did have a winning record, but this is where the tie was because, weirdly enough, for some reason, the Steelers have always had the Ravens number, especially in the Lamar Jackson era. I think Lamar technically has a losing record against the Steelers. So I think the Steelers will go 1-0-1 against them. The Ravens will go 0-1-1. So the AFC North continues to AFC North, but we have the Ravens at 9-7-1. Do like them bringing in Derrick Henry. Obviously, this is a Derrick Henry stan account for better and for worse. Mark Andrews coming off that ankle injury. I know he technically suited up for that playoff game. I am worried that, especially an older tight end with an ankle injury, he's not going to be quite Mark Andrews next year. Still better than 89% of the tight ends in the league, but high ankle sprains alone are hard to come back from after a while. let alone what happened to his ankle. My goodness, like that thing went 3 different directions. Love Zay Flowers, really good fantasy pickup here in a fantasy draft, by the way. I do wonder with the loss of Odell, they didn't really fill out that receiving core quite as well. It's still, I don't want to say barren, but still missing some. I'm also worried about the defense, honestly, more so. Mike McDonald's an incredible defensive coordinator that they lost. They lost a lot of coaches throughout on the defensive side, a lot of assistants. Obviously, you have Matt BK. You still have Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton. You still got all pros. You're still going to be lethal. I'm worried about the losses of guys like Patrick Queen. Is Jadeveon Clowney going to have another career year like he had with Mike McDonald last year? Are some of these no-name guys going to just play well and above the expectations they've previously seen? I'm curious what they're going to do with the corner spot because I like Marlon Humphrey, but for some reason their defensive backfield gets hurt so frequently. They have very bad luck with injuries in the secondary, and they have for a while. Last year, it was surprisingly decent, but I remember the last few years it looked like Utah against Ohio State in that Rose Bowl game a few years ago, where they're trotting whatever they can out there sometimes. And it works when you have the pass rush that they have. And I do think they'll be fine. I just think we'll talk more about some of these other teams. I just think in this division, everyone got a little bit better or healthier where they might have taken a baby step back. Still Lamar Jackson, still the Ravens. If any of the two teams that have above them if they blink for a second, the Ravens will jump them and go like 10-6 or 11-6, 10-7, etc. So we have the Ravens at 3. Once again, same vein as the Steelers. You plug them in the NFC South, they're going 13-4, winning the division. But unfortunately, look who you're playing against.
Yeah, I don't hate this pick. I get it. I don't like the ties. That's just my opinion. But if there's going to be a division that ties, it's going to be the AFC North. That's just the nature of the business, the nature of the beast, if you will. These division, especially you mentioned the Steelers somehow have the Ravens number. I don't get it. I really don't. Like for a team to be so, no matter how good or bad they are, and obviously most of our watching career has had Mike Tomlin in charge of the Steelers. So part of that is also a consideration of how good Mike Tomlin does with the players to get them ready for a tough opponent every year, like the Ravens, because we all know what the Ravens do, which is they just throw a great defense out there, and their offense is just meh for the most part. Now it's kind of flipped, obviously, with Lamar Jackson there, Mark Andrews, things like that. And their defense is nothing to scoff at, though. So, yeah, maybe a little bit shocked that they're so low as far as in this division, but also 9-7-1 is, again, nothing to scoff at. That's a playoff record most years.
It's awfully close. And when you see the records of the rest of the division, you'll kind of see why, because this is going to be a little bit of a bloodbath. But at number 2, we do have the Cleveland Browns. We went from the old Browns to now the new Browns. I have them at 10-7. I do think they're going to go 4-2 in the division. I think they're going to be a team that matches up very well in-house. We already know the troubles they always seem to cause the Bengals. Them and the Steelers seem to split depending on who's at home these days. And then I think them and the Ravens kind of will be the same thing. They'll split again. So I think that's going to give them a 4-2 in division. They might be, on my opinion, outside of quarterback, one of the top 3 or 4 rosters in the NFL, if you exclude the quarterback position. What, like people talk about that with Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Oh, you could plug any quarterback in there, blah, blah. We literally saw the Browns plug in almost anybody at quarterback last year, and the train kept rolling. Dorian Thompkins-Robinson, Joe Flacco, PJ Walker, Deshaun Watson, they were all out there. They all won some games at some point. Flacco even took them on a playoff run while literally playing like Jameis Winston, but 40. It was either a pick 6 or a 40-yard touchdown. There's no in between with him. This year, ironically, Jameis Winston as the backup. I really like this fit because if Deshaun can't play for some reason, we're obviously not saying go. We don't necessarily like to account for injuries. But if he does not play, Jameis Winston's a more qualified backup than the other 4 that they had last year at this point in their careers. Last time we saw Jameis, he was 14 touchdowns and 3 picks in 7 games. Had the Saints at 5-2 and was a dark horse MVP candidate. Granted, he has torn his ACL and basically been relegated to the bench because the Saints are a mess since that point, and I don't know what they've been thinking. I mean, some of the decisions they made since that point have been questionable to say the least, but my point is I think Jameis, if he needs to, can step in and make plays. Amari Cooper is still awesome. Jerry Jeudy, I think, is a number 2 receiver in this offense, will be more effective than he was in Denver, to say. Eli Moore is still explosive. Cedric Tillman's a really good young receiver they have out of Tennessee. Our guy David Njoku is still there. Chief is still easily top 10 tight end. Could make a case for top 5 with the way he finished last season. Nick Chubb, I'm not counting on coming back this year. If he does, that's great. But after that kind of knee injury, it's tough. And if he does, it's a back half of the season run. If I'm them, I don't bring him back for those first 8 weeks. I don't care if he's squatting 600 pounds. I know he's not human, but That's a horrific knee injury, and the second time that's happened to him. But still,
Yeah.
with Jerome Ford and some of the guys they could plug in there, offensive line still top 10, and defensively, at home, the number one defense in the NFL by a large margin. The problem is they were 32nd on the road defense. I think they find a way to mitigate that at least a little bit and be like 23rd on the road so that it's not such a huge difference. Myles Garrett's Defensive Player of the Year, Denzel Ward, the cornerback room, Greg Newsome, all of them are awesome. I love Justin Reed at safety. They have JOK getting a recent extension. I can go on and on. Their roster, top to bottom, is outstanding. Deshaun just needs to play a little bit better than he did in those first 6 games, really. A little bit better. Like 78% of what he was last time we saw him in Houston, or even his Houston career as a whole. Just like 80% of that. Manage the game, make a couple plays here and there. Use your legs a little. Don't turn the ball over. I don't want. If we can say game manager, everyone's going to lose their mind. They don't understand our definition of game manager, but you just have to make a few plays when needed and keep everything on schedule. Your team is loaded. You don't have to press anything, and you just have to read the field, just go through it. So I think if he can do that, I think they'll be fine. It's a very expensive job, the way he'll be paid handsomely for it, but I think this team showed to be quarterback proof last year, and I think now you have 2 really good quarterbacks that you could use there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely something that you look at it, I don't know, man. I don't know if Deshaun's built that way though. If we're being honest, like as a player, he has always been the exceptional player, right? He has always been the guy that goes above and beyond to make exceptional plays. Some of his best plays in his career, however, if you look at college, you look at today, they're within the playbook. Mind you, some of the more standout ones, obviously, well, not so much. Those are definitely him going and making plays. You think of Hunter Renfro in the national championship game type of thing, where he's rolling out, getting smashed, and then slides out of the pocket and then hits Renfro open in the end zone. Like those things are what makes him different. But the problem is that doesn't work for Stefanski. His offense is built off of Joe Flacco types, Jameis Winston types, Baker Mayfield types. None of those guys are Deshaun, and I think that's maybe a big concern for some folks out there because you paid that man a lot of money to come here and play. And obviously, putting everything else aside with Deshaun, just looking at play, I don't think he's a fit for this offense. With that said, I think you're right. This might be the best team on paper without a quarterback, like top to bottom. And I guess you can include running back in that right now because Nick Chubb, but those 2 positions excluded, this team might be one of the best in this division or across the NFL in every single position, which is
Absolutely.
crazy.
The offense has always been built on timing, and Deshaun's been more of an extensive type player, an extensive improviser. And they were still 4-1 with him at the helm. So even with what
Yeah.
seems like a mismatch, I'm not giving him 5-1 because he played 4 plays against the Colts and got
Yeah.
injured twice. So
No,
that
I,
game's
I'm
the
with you.
PJ Walker's win. We're not giving him that 5-1. He was 4-1, and he had a good second half against the Ravens. But at the same time, that second half against the Ravens was the only time he's really looked good since he's been with the Browns, minus like a game against Washington. Very few and far between. So if you can get a little bit of something in between, I think it's going to be a very dangerous team nonetheless. And if they get into the playoffs with a not 40-year-old quarterback who has a propensity to just kind of put it up there, whether it is Jameis or Deshaun, that's a very scary team. But alas, that will lead me to the top of the AFC North. We're staying in the state of Ohio, but just barely. We're going to go down to Cincinnati, and we're going to get to the Cincinnati Bengals. 11-6, just ahead of the Browns by a game. As per usual, they will struggle in the AFC North. I have them going 2-4 because for some reason the division is just a problem for them. I love the rebuilding of the offensive line they've done. They got 2 guys with the last name Brown who are like 6'8" at each tackle and like 340 pounds each. So they got bookend walls there. Amarius Mims, the rookie tackle, who's injured right now, but he looks like he'll be fine from Georgia. I think they've fortified that offensive line finally. Barian Kappa, those type of guys. Jamar Chase, that contract situation is a little bit of, I don't want to say worrisome, but I normally don't love it when receivers hold out because it usually means a slower start to the season.
Looks
It is
away
still,
Cowboys misery.
yeah, that one's rough too. Well, we have plenty to talk about in that one coming up.
Sorry.
But still, I think Jamar Chase, if anyone can handle it. T. Higgins is in there. I know he has his contract speed, but he's there ready to roll. I do like Zach Moss in this offense, replacing Joe Mixon and Chase Brown, who is electric if he doesn't fumble the football. If he puts two hands on the ball and rolls with it, no more fumbles. As they told Don Billingsley in Friday Night Lights, I think he's going to be explosive. He's going to make some big plays. Zach Moss is going to be really nice. I do like some of what they have at tight end as well, too. I think they just have a lot of weapons. I think they have a lot of weapons, a much better offensive line than they've had before. Defensively, I forgot to mention Jermaine Burton coming into the draft pick from Alabama to fill in. Mike Gesicki is the tight end whose name was eluding me for some reason. Defensively, they're going to miss DJ Reader, but they still got some boys like Logan Wilson, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, Mike Hilton. They got guys that they need to. I think they do still have a very, very good enough defense. And if Joe Burrow in the offense is healthy, this feels like the year they kind of click. So I'm going to give the Bengals 11-6 at the top of the AFC North.
Yeah, well, this applies. All right, cool.
All right,
but no, in all seriousness, yeah, I do like it with them at the top of the North. It seems to be one of those situations with them, and we talked about it this weekend. Again, guys, if you have not watched our first day of fantasy football roundtable, go watch it. It's over on the Belly Up Sports YouTube because we talk about this, and actually Matt has a really good point about Burrow. When he's healthy, this team is exceptional. When he's played a full season, he himself has not thrown under 30 touchdowns. How wild of a thought is that? Just if he can stay healthy, and you consider Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, contract conversations constantly happening around this team, these guys are ready to make plays. Jermaine Burton coming in, obviously ready to make plays. Mike Gesicki, we all know what that big old dude can do in the red zone. Just give him the chance that Miami really never gave him. But when they did, guess what he did? Score. Anyways.
And had really mediocre gritties.
Yeah, the worst gritty I've ever seen in my life. And that's including the one I tried to do in the mirror one day. That was still better than Gesicki. Anyways, but no, it's it is one of those things with the Bengals. You do just really have to weigh down Jamar Chase getting a contract or at least getting into practice. T. Higgins contract conversations, but those two pale in comparison to the big one, which is will Joe Burrow stay healthy? Because I think defensively, this team has the ability. And by the way, there still just happens to be a safety out there that can pair really well with a secondary. They want to go get that free agent safety. Just going to throw that out there. Anyways, but yeah, you have the abilities to win if your team stays healthy. And I think they addressed all that with their offensive line. I think that's a great opportunity. But yeah, I don't know. Will Joe Burrow stay healthy? That's just going to be my big question.
Absolutely.
As I have a Joe Burrow jersey here.
Hey, I wasn't going to say it, but I'm glad we were able to point out the elephant in the room, if you will. But go ahead and just recapping my AFC North predictions from the bottom to the top. We have the Steelers finishing at 8-1. We have the Ravens at 9-7-1. Of course, they have to tie ones. We have the Browns at 10-7, and the Bengals taking the AFC North crown at an 11-6 record. And Kelcey, the floor is now yours, good sir. How does the AFC North play out in your eyes?
Well, AFC North is, again, the toughest division in football. But I think it's going to be real tough for one team. I'm not even going to sugarcoat this one. This is going to be the toughest this team has ever had to face in Mike Tomlin's era. This is Steelers. I don't think they're going to be that good. I think they're going 4-13. Is this some dislike towards Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback? Absolutely. Is there reason why I dislike Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback? Absolutely. Does it have to do with the pressure he adds to his offensive linemen every time he drops back? 1,000% yes. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, please just watch 10 plays from his entire career after winning a Super Bowl. You will see that instantaneously this dude spends 5 to 10 seconds in a backfield trying to figure out what he wants to do, inviting a rush, and then escaping to make a big play and look great while doing it. He is the LeBron James of quarterbacks. And I don't mean that because he's good. I mean that because he chases stats, whether it's subconscious or not, doesn't matter. He does it. He chases being that highlight reel. You don't have to. If Russell Wilson goes back to his Super Bowl winning ways, which is game manager, this 4-13 team could be something more. But it's Russell Wilson. It's Danger Russ. It's let's ride or whatever he's going to say. And I haven't even seen what he says in Pittsburgh yet. Or, whatever he wants to come up with catchphrase wise, whatever PR spin he wants to put on this. It's not going to help them when they're 4-13 because he's going to get replaced by Justin Fields, and probably 2 of these wins are going to come from Justin Fields.
I'm going to add on. I'll add on to that too. You talked about the hell he puts his offensive line in. Justin Fields also puts his offensive line in hell too. So it's like one way or the other, the offensive line's going to be pissed this entire season. They're either way.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
Oh, no, I'm just agreeing that as the offensive lineman, you got to be looking at this team like, I hate this team so much for what they're going to do to these poor
cannot
big guys.
Stand it. I look at this team, and 4-13 should tell you how much I trust this offensive line. And as a whole, I don't really hate the rest of the Steelers team defensively. They're old, but they are talented still. Their running backs are talented. Their offensive line are getting better, but you cannot put rookies and second and third year linemen in a situation where they're having to block for at least 5 seconds before their quarterback decides what to do. On average, you get 3 seconds in the pocket. Russell Wilson, on average, spends the most time extending a play, which tells you everything you need to know. If you guys don't know what that means in the grand scheme of a play, if you're watching a play, that means that Russell Wilson spends the most time with the ball in his hands trying to make a play. Not because his offensive line are struggling, because if that was the case, he would have a shorter time to throw. So just consider that much when you're looking at this and you're trying to make your bets for this year or trying to figure out what the Steelers are going to do. If he continues that trend, this team is not going to succeed. And that sucks because this team does have weapons. George Pickens is a weapon. Najee Harris is a weapon. Warren is a weapon. For life, I can't think of their tight end right now, but he is also a weapon, a very underused. Yeah, Freiermuth, thank you. He is a very underused weapon. There are talented players across this team, and potentially they're going to bring in a new one in Brandon Ayuk. Potentially. Say what you will about that. If it happens, will we see Brandon Ayuk or will we see Deontay Johnson, who caught 0 touchdowns?
Well, Deontay's in Carolina, so we won't see him, luckily.
I know, but you get what I'm saying.
I know
that type of play.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot to mention Dante Jackson on the defense too. I forgot
Absolutely.
about that. But I agree with you. It's like the offensive line where you put in hell with Russ, who's going to drop back 30 yards and then start sprinting, and Fields, who's going to hold the ball, surveying the field like how we played Madden, where we lock in for 5 seconds, then move around. So that's what worries me is that the offensive line, if it gets better, the quarterbacks don't help them. It's not a lot of quick release. So one thing I do like, though, I like those running backs in fantasy because Arthur Smith is going to beat the heck out of both of them, I'd imagine. The problem is I'm going to pick one and Arthur Smith's going to ignore him. But it's going to be, I like both of those running backs in fantasy.
And also I want to go back to Freiermuth for a second because you mentioned Arthur Smith. We all know what Arthur Smith did as an OC with tight ends. Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. How good were they under Arthur Smith?
Jonnu Smith had 8 touchdowns and got paid.
They were top tier guys. Give Pat Freiermuth an opportunity to go be that guy. Man, it's going to be great for the Steelers. But again, I'm going to go back to Russell Wilson. What is the big Achilles heel besides putting pressure on his line? He doesn't throw to tight ends. Just ask Jimmy Graham.
Got to throw over the middle to do that, and he doesn't look over the middle. As you can see, the rage that the Steelers have put through have completely froze Kelcey right now. But there we go. Now I think we're starting to get him back. The good news is it's only up from here. So we do have the Steelers at 4-13. Basically, lots of concerns about the offensive line, lots of concerns about the quarterback play. But we're kind of in agreement there as well. The question with the Steelers is what if they can get those things solved, are they able to make up with some of those other things as well? So right now, as we wait for Kelcey to be able to bounce back here, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. And Kelcey, we got you back. Just talk about the Steelers. Clearly set your technology.
I don't need to worry about the Steelers anymore. We're going to move on a little bit here to number 3 in the AFC North. We're going to go with the Bengals. I don't know if I can still have this on here because I do give them a winning record, but they're 3rd in the division. We'll talk about where they finish in the playoff situation later on down the road. But yeah, Joe Burrow, I think, is healthier, does get healthy this season. But again, my problems all come from the other stuff here. I do think Jamar Chase not practicing right now is going to hurt. I do think T. Higgins having that contract hanging over his head is going to hurt. I do think having a new tight end, having a new number 3 receiver, and not really solidifying your number 2 linebacker and losing DJ Reader are all going to play a piece into why they don't excel. But 9-8 is nothing to scoff at. You have 17 games. You win 9 of them. You have a winning record. Mike Tomlin's made a literal career off of this. But will it be enough for Bengals fans who have experienced Super Bowl now? Again? I don't know. That's the question, right? But I do think this team's going to be good. They're going to be impressive. But also, you lost Joe Mixon. And while I am not the biggest Joe Mixon fan, he's always been an underrated running back, in my opinion. He's always been top 10 in a lot of rushing stats in his career. But was he really effective in this offense? No. Can Zach Moss be effective? Potentially, if they use him correctly. And that's the thing is we saw Samaje Perine do well in this offense. But did it pan out? No. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with the Bengals this year, but I do think it's going to be better than before, but not by much. It's 9-8. It's not a bad season by any means, but you're also in one of the toughest divisions.
Yeah, you might have to take that jersey off there really quickly before the Kentucky/Southern Ohio starts to invade.
Just gonna, it can stay. Just remember, I've had this for a while, and I'm just now showing it off because I just wanted to prove to everybody I am looking beyond the Cowboys here, guys.
As a Bengals fan in the making, I for one am shocked, but I'm curious to see where you have the old Browns and the new Browns ranked as your next two teams.
It's funny you mentioned the old Browns first, because that's where we're going here for number 2. I have the Ravens at number 2 in the division, 11-6. So I alluded to it when DJ gave his pick for the Ravens. I think the Ravens are a very good team, top to bottom. I think they have one of the best defenses. And now you add in one of the best offenses. Oh, by the way, it got better. Because what better threat than to put Derrick Henry out here with Lamar Jackson? And I don't care how old Derrick Henry is. And I had this conversation a lot during this past weekend at Fantasy Football Expo. Will Derrick Henry, who is over 30, as a running back with a high usage rate, fall off? The simple answer I've been given by a lot of people is doesn't seem to be the case. And I think that's true. I think that holds true this year because this man is not going to be carrying the ball 210 times. This man is going to be carrying the ball 130, 150. You might be wondering, what do you mean? He's coming in to play? Absolutely going to come in and play running back, but he's also coming in to play a little bit of decoy. Because this is something we talk about this weekend. One of the best advantages the Ravens have over a lot of teams is that their coaching staff knows their personnel and knows what makes them excel. What is one of the things that Lamar loves to do is take on an edge defender, especially a corner, one-on-one in space. How does he do that given that every team knows that he has that ability to escape the edge? Simple. You throw a running back up there who has the same threat but up the middle. Now, I've been on record as saying Derrick Henry is not an interior running back, but he has never had an interior offensive line built like the Ravens. And that's just a fact. There's nothing that anybody can do to dispute that. This team loves to run the ball up the middle, and running with a mesh point between Derrick Henry and Lamar every single play will give an opportunity for that edge that wants to sneak inside to try to tackle the big behemoth that is Derrick Henry. It gives Lamar that little bit that he needs to get around a corner and go take a corner one-on-one and break it out for who knows what. Then you add in pop passes and things like that over the top of that. This team becomes really threatening with the same exact look every time, but you can still run 30 variations of the play off of one look. And I talked oftentimes about Ohio State and Ryan Day's offense, how he has 14 plays out of 3 looks. Yeah, it's a bad idea for college. In the NFL, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because you got a world-class quarterback. You got a world-class running back. You have an all-world interior offensive line. Go use it. And now by the way, you still have Mark Andrews, and you added thousands of great receivers, it feels like. So give this team a chance offensively. I think they're going to impress a lot of teams. So I'm going 11-6 with the Ravens. I know that was a long-winded excuse, but we always talk about the defense. This feels like a time to talk about their offense because they are that good. And I don't think there's any excuse for them to not have one of the best offenses in the league. And especially, we might see a real legitimate rushing attack like we've never seen before in the NFL.
I just want to point out if they go under center and did an I formation, that straight line would have Tyler Linderbaum, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Ricard, Derrick Henry. That's as frightening of an I form as you can imagine.
Yeah, and then you throw in like an H-back situation out of a shotgun or a semi-shotgun pistol situation, similar to what Auburn ran with Cam, where you had Cam Newton, Michael Dyer, you had Phil Bletzenkirchen, and then you also had Kelly at the time who was there. who ended up going and playing with the Panthers for a year before getting cut. But, if you take the Ravens and put them in that situation, well, that team just gets a whole lot crazier because, Ricard would be that H-back who is just a dirty blocker. I mean, that man gets in space and he will just run anybody over, and I don't care. It's a freight train waiting to happen. And then you have Derrick Henry behind him. So if you get past Ricard, congratulations. Now you have the actual engine of the train to try to tackle. Good luck.
Congratulations. You avoided one freight train just to get hit by a bigger freight train.
Yeah, every anime fan out there is like, "Oh, Truckcoon. Oh, okay, I missed it. Oh, wait, never mind. There's another truck. Oh, great." That's kind of how I look at this offense. It's an impressive offense, and I haven't even talked about the defense, and I don't think I need to because they're darn good everywhere except for one position, which is just the old corners. Just got to get healthy there. That's the big thing. So, but they're not good enough to be number one.
But at number one
is the current Browns. Cleveland Browns at 13-4. And everybody's like, Kelcey, you just talked about Deshaun. You just talked about how bad he is for this offense. Well, I also said if he can't learn. I think getting paid a lot of money will make anybody learn. Getting a guy in this offense for a whole offseason and allowing him to learn, not including the time he took off at the end of last year, this guy has this essentially a year and a half worth of practice reps to perfect the idea of game management, because that's in Kevin Stefanski's offense all you need. You add in Isaiah Ford to this offense as far as the probably premier running back until Nick Chubb gets healthy. And this team still is very threatening. Like, I'm sorry, nobody really was taking him off. They added Deontay Foreman, by the way, into this backfield as well. So now you have two running backs who are a pain to try to keep corral and tackle. And let's not forget their offense. Their weapons continue to get better. You still have Amari. You still have David Njoku. And that offensive line keeps getting better. And then let's look at the defense. Myles Garrett. Enough said, right? Oh, but by the way, there's JOK, as you mentioned earlier. The entire secondary is insane.
I'll also add in there too, as it's taken.
The only position of weak.
There we go. Now we got you coming back. I think. While we wait for that, I do think they did also add Nyheim Hines as a running back too. So they're going to have a running back by committee, a lot of different types. I think what he can do in space that we saw a lot of with Indianapolis and even with Buffalo a little bit. So I like what they have. It's a committee as opposed to Nick Chubb carries to the promised land, but I agree that they got a lot of weapons, and you not only have them winning the division for the first time in history, you have them doing it with a little bit of a bang too at 13-4.
A little bit of a bang. Yeah, no, I mean, look, it wasn't just the offense, and the reason why I have them there is the defense, because it is Myles Garrett and crew, but that crew's pretty good. I hate to make anime references back to back, but these are Dragon Ball Z warriors and One Piece guys, where they are the top tier of a world. And as far as the defense goes, as long as they can play the same at home and away, that's always a question. Maybe fill that middle linebacker role. You got a pretty good deal there. But yeah, no, I think the Browns are good. I just think it's a matter of Deshaun kind of focusing in on what he has to do, and that'll determine a lot. So, give me the Browns here, 13-4, taking the division in emphatic fashion.
Run QB power behind DeJuan Jones, 6'8", 375-pound self, and just watch him clear out a lot of space, or make teams have to try and run around him. They picked the wrong side. That's a lot of real estate to get around.
Yeah, good luck. I'm a big guy, but he makes me look small.
He makes me look like a toothpick. But
yeah.
Go and give us a quick recap of what we're thinking for the AFC North as you shook things up here a little bit.
Yeah, I had a little fun with this one. So starting at the bottom, working our way up here. I have the Steelers 4-13 at the bottom of the AFC North. Just don't see it happen. Bengals with a kind of resurgence here, 9-8, third in the division. Looks pretty good for all intents and purposes, but contract questions. Ravens 11-6, coming in at number 2 in the AFC North. Just a really good team all around. But number 1, I have the Browns 13-4, and I'm still slightly regretting this pick, but I'm rolling with it because, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in this defense and their weapons, and that somebody getting paid that much money will figure out how to play basic game management quarterbacking.
Very long-winded way to say that you believe in the Browns. That you're in believe land and you believe in the land. But as we brought back to, we have started using an anonymous fan vote to compare and contrast it to ours. So taking a look at the AFC North fan vote, they have the Steelers at the bottom at 9-8, the Bengals at third at 10-7, the Browns at 11-6, and the Ravens at 13-4. So in the same vein as us, the Steelers at the bottom of the division, just with a better record than the one of us have, but with the Ravens taking the top. So same seller, but different division winner for all three of us. So